The first thing Andrea Scott felt when she opened her eyes was thirst. Not just any thirst, but the kind that turned her mouth into the Mojave Desert and your brain into cotton. Her head throbbed like someone had taken a sledgehammer to her skull, and her tongue felt like sandpaper. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of the Vegas hotel suite, slicing through her eyelids like a scalpel. She groaned and rolled onto her side, eyes still half closed, and that's when she saw it. Hand resting on the same bed. Not hers, a woman's hand. Delicate fingers. Perfectly manicured nails painted with the same icy pink she remembered from yesterday's Bachelorette brunch. Her stomach lurched. Oh no, 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 no. Slowly, as if lifting her head too fast would shatter her entire existence, Andrea looked up. Blonde hair tousled across the pillow. A bare shoulder. Familiar features even in sleep. Sharp cheekbones. A little frown even now. Madison Pierce. Madison Dot Pierce. Andrea jolted upright, which was a terrible idea. Pain spiked through her temples. As her vision spun, but none of that compared to the internal screaming echoing inside her. Madison stirred at the movement, brow twitching. What the hell? She muttered groggy, opening her eyes, blinking into the morning light. They locked eyes for 1 second, one long world-ending second. Then they both screamed, "What the... Oh my God, why are you in my bed? This isn't your bed. It's my wait, what? Oh my God, are you naked?" Andrea clutched the sheets to her chest, even though she had no idea what was or wasn't underneath them. Madison was already scrambling away, wrapping herself in the blanket. Like she was being exorcised. "Don't look at me," she shouted. "Trust me, I'm not trying to." Andrea snapped. Her heart was beating so loud she couldn't hear her own thoughts. Her mind was trying to catch up. This wasn't happening. This had to be a joke. A terrible tequila-induced fever dream. But then Madison's eyes widened. She reached toward the knitstand and picked something up. Andrea watched as her face drained of all color. "What?" Madison whispered, her voice thin and sharp as glass. "Is this?" Andrea squinted. Madison was holding a piece of paper. No, not paper, parchment. Andrea grabbed it from her hand. Certificate of marriage. Andrea Scott. Madison Pierce. Yesterday's date. Signed, stamped, legal. No. Andrea breathed, blood rushing to her ears. This is not, no. Madison took a shaky breath, arms folded tightly across her chest. "Tell me this is a prank. Please tell me your sister thought it would be hilarious to fake a marriage license and sneak it into our room. Would she pay for the stamp and the legal number on the bottom?" Andrea asked, voice flat. "This is real." They stared at each other in silence, horrified, blinking, trying to compute. Andrea ran a hand through her tangled dark hair and groaned. "This cannot be happening. We hate each other." "Exactly." Madison snapped. "I would rather marry a broken vending machine than you." "Charming?" Andrea pushed off the bed, clutching the sheet around her body. Her head pounded harder now. Her eyes flicked down and froze. Her left hand, her ring finger, gold, a wedding band. She turned to Madison. "You're wearing one too." Madison looked down and screamed again. "Oh my God. Oh my God." Andrea stumbled toward the bathroom, dragging the sheet behind her like some chaotic Greek goddess. She splashed water on her face, trying to breathe. This couldn't be real. She didn't even remember talking to Madison last night, let alone marrying her. They had spent the last 5 years exchanging passive-aggressive insults and avoiding each other at family events like it was an Olympic sport. Madison Pierce, her sister's best friend, the golden girl of organization and judgment, the same woman who once told Andrea she was unreliable, immature, and chronically allergic to responsibility. And now they were legally bound. "Okay," Andrea said aloud, gripping the sink. "Okay, calm down. Fix this." Madison appeared in the doorway, now wearing a robe she must have found in the closet. Her face was pale, her eyes wild. "We need to get an annulment today." Right now, obviously. Andreas snapped. You think I want to stay married to you? Please. Madison exhaled sharply. Good. So we agree on something. Andre mirrored her eyes. The world must be ending. The sooner we forget this happened, the better. Perfect. Great. They stood there for a beat, breathing hard. Then Madison spoke again, slower this time. We can't tell your sister or anyone. If this gets out, it'll ruin the whole wedding. She'd kill us both. Andrea closed her eyes. You're right. She'd go nuclear. And considering the entire bridal party is staying in a house together starting today, we need to act completely normal. Andrea blinked. Wait, what? Madison's lips twitched. The house, the week of prep. Remember hair trials, menu tastings, family dinners? You're all moving in this afternoon. Andrea felt the ground sway beneath her. So we're going to be trapped. In a house with my family and your best friend, my sister, for a full week, pretending this never happened. Madison's smile was tight and humorless. Exactly. Awesome, Andrea muttered. Can't wait. Madison crossed her arms. You're not telling anyone. Not even your cousin Sam. I know you two are weirdly close. You're one to talk. You and my sister basically share a brain. We're not talking about me. Shocking. Just pack your things. We'll go to the courthouse after checkout. Then we'll handle the house situation. Andrea threw her hands up. Handle it? How, Madison? We're going to be sneaking around like some soap opera disaster couple. Madison's eyes flicked to her hand. Then take the ring off. Andrea hesitated. She looked down. Her fingers trembled, but she slid the ring off slowly, placing it on the edge of the sink like it was radioactive. Madison did the same, and for a brief moment, their eyes met in the mirror. Something flickered, but it was gone as fast as it came. This never happened, Madison said. Andre nodded, agreed, but even as they said it, something heavy hung between them, something unsaid. And no matter how hard they tried, it wasn't going to stay buried for long. Andrea stood on the front porch of the rental house, staring at the massive double doors like they might open on their own and offer her a way out. Her suitcase sat beside her, one wheel busted from the airport's loving abuse, and her sunglasses were slipping down her nose in the Nevada heat. Madison was behind her, perfectly composed as always, one hand resting lightly on her own sleek carry-on, dressed like she was about to attend a wellness retreat and not, in fact, move into a week-long living nightmare with her accidental wife. Are you going to knock, or should we stand here until someone calls security? Madison's voice was clipped low, but Andrea didn't miss the edge beneath it. She sighed dramatically. I'm trying to breathe before we enter the lion's den. You should try it sometime. Breathing. I mean, you always look like you're holding your breath, waiting to be offended. And you always look like you just escaped a bar fight you started over the last shot of tequila. Thanks, at least I'm consistent. Consistently reckless. Yes. Andre turned to her, lowering her sunglasses to glare. You do remember that we're legally married, right? Might want to tone down the insults, unless you want to be served divorce papers mid-toast at the rehearsal. Dinner. Trust me, I'll be first in line. The door swung open before Andrea could fire back. Claire, her sister, radiant and glowing and dangerously perceptive, stood there beaming. Finally, you two took forever. Come in. Come in. Andrea forced her most convincing smile. Traffic was hell. I'm sure, Claire said, pulling her into a tight hug before turning to Madison. You look amazing as always. Madison returned the hug, like it was second nature. So, do you bride-to-be glow suits you? Andrea rolled her eyes but kept smiling. The house was huge, open, filled with light and neutral tones that screamed Pinterest board. Laughter echoed from somewhere inside. Other bridesmaids, family members, the kind of chaos that came with people pretending everything would go smoothly. During a wedding week, Madison's hand brushed against Andrea's as they moved through the entryway, and both of them flinched, stepping apart like magnets, suddenly repelling. Andrea's stomach twisted. This was going to be hell. You're in the blue room, Claire said cheerfully, leading them upstairs. Sorry, there aren't many rooms with 2 beds, and you two know each other, so totally fine. Andrea said too fast, her voice almost cracking. Madison smiled tightly. We'll manage. The blue room was cozy and bright, with a queen-size bed planted squarely in the middle, and not an inch of space for a second mattress. Andrea looked at it like it might bite. Claire dropped their keys on the dresser. Dinner is at 7 o'clock. Everyone's excited to see you, too. And with that, she was gone. The silence she left behind was immediate and suffocating. Andrea turned to Madison. This is a horror movie. Madison raised an eyebrow. You've seen nothing yet. Andrea flopped onto the bed and groaned into a pillow. How do you act normal around people when you've made the worst decision of your life and it's wearing beige linen and judging you from across the room? Try shutting up for 5 minutes. It helps. God, you're so warm and nurturing. No wonder my sister adores you. Someone has to be the adult in this equation. I'm an adult. Andrea snapped, sitting up, just selectively. Madison turned away to unpack. Movements. Precise, mechanical. Andrea watched her for a moment. Something about the calm in Madison's posture made her want to throw things or maybe kiss her again, which was an even worse idea. You really don't remember anything from that night? She asked before she could stop herself. Madison stiffened, but didn't turn around. No, nothing after shot number 4. You? Andrea hesitated. Flashes. I think there was an Elvis impersonator. Great. Just what I needed. A cliché. You're welcome. The rest of the afternoon passed in slow, painful increments. Andrea tried to avoid Madison as much as possible, which proved nearly impossible since they were sharing not only a room, but an entire itinerary. Everything was pre-planned. Brunches, dress fittings, meetings with the planner. And the worst part, everyone assumed Andrea and Madison were getting along better than ever. You two seemed different this week. One of the bridesmaids, Lucy, said over cocktails in the living room. Like not trying to kill each other. It's refreshing. We're working on ourselves, Andrea said sweetly. Madison smiled beside her, not quite. Looking at her, personal growth is a beautiful thing. Andrea excused herself soon after that. She needed airspace, sanity. She stepped out onto the backyard patio where the sunset cast gold over everything. The desert air was dry, cool now that the sun was going down. And for a second, she could almost pretend she wasn't married to a woman who looked like a walking stress headache. The door creaked open behind her. You're avoiding me, Madison said. Andrea didn't turn around. I'm avoiding everyone. You just happen to be most people right now. We're not going to survive this week if we keep pretending nothing happened. Andrea. Turn then slowly, arms crossed. What do you suggest? Announce it over brunch? Toast the accidental wives. Of course not, Madison snapped. But we need to at least look aligned, like we don't hate each other. But we do. And yet here we are. Madison stepped closer. The tension between them immediate and sharp. Andrea's throat went dry. If anyone finds out, they won't, Madison said. Quickly, not if we're smart. You keep saying that like we've ever made a smart decision together. Madison was inches away now. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. Her eyes were dark in the fading light. Her mouth set in that same determined line Andrea had memorized over the years. It wasn't fair how good she looked when she was angry. Or maybe it was exactly the problem. You're really good at pretending nothing affects you, Andrea said softly. I'm not pretending, Madison replied, but her voice wavered. Andrea took a breath. Then why did you flinch when our hands touched earlier? Because you're infuriating. Try again. Because I don't know how to be near you and not. She stopped herself. Andrea's heart thudded. Not what? Madison's jaw clenched. She didn't answer. And then, like some cosmic punishment for how charged the moment had become, The door burst open behind them. Claire stuck her head out. "There you. 2 are, come help us pick cake flavors." Our planner brought samples. Madison turned so fast it was almost graceful. Of course. Andrea followed her back inside, pulse still racing. Her fingers still tingled from where Madison's hand had brushed. Hers earlier, and she couldn't shake the look in Madison's eyes. The hesitation, the flash of something deeper, something dangerous. This wasn't just proximity. This was something else. Something they couldn't afford to name. Not yet. Andrea wasn't proud of how often she fantasized about throwing Madison Pierce off a metaphorical cliff. Okay, sometimes a literal one. Not to kill her, just to shake that infuriating, unbothered expression off her face. 3 days. It had been 3 days since the Great Vegas disaster, and somehow Madison hadn't crumbled. Not once. She woke up early, did yoga on the deck, talked to Claire like she hadn't married her sister's least favorite person on earth. Meanwhile, Andrew was living on caffeine and sarcasm, flinching every time someone mentioned weddings, rings, or the word commitment. "You're being weird," Sam said, lounging beside her on the pool chairs that afternoon. Her cousin wore a giant hat, sunglasses, and the smug look of someone who knew Andrea too well. Andrea sipped her mimosa and avoided eye contact. "I'm always weird." "No, you're chaotic. This is new. You keep disappearing whenever Madison walks into the room. Maybe I'm allergic to passive aggression and pantsuits." Emma and Sam lifted her sunglasses. "You guys have been biting each other's heads off for years, and now you're avoiding each other." Andrea kept her tone casual. "We're coexisting. It's gross. I'm trying to survive. If you two ever hooked up, the world would combust." Andrea choked on her drink. "Excuse me?" "Come on," Sam said, laughing. "You've always had that vibe. Hate you so much. I might make out with you energy. It's intense. Makes people uncomfortable." "I love it." Andrea stood. "I'm going inside before you write fanfiction about us." "Too late. You're the worst." She found Madison in the kitchen alone, slicing lemons with surgical precision. Of course. "Don't you ever relax?" Andrea muttered, grabbing a glass. From the cabinet, Madison didn't look up. Relaxing is inefficient. You know what else is inefficient? Holding your breath for an entire week so no one finds out you accidentally married your arch nemesis. You wouldn't have to hold anything if someone hadn't shouted at a bartender that she was married now. Andrea flushed. That was celebratory. That was incriminating. You're not exactly Miss Settle Yourself. The fake smile only works when you're not clenching your jaw like you want to bite someone. Madison finally looked at her eyes sharp. "You're projecting. You're unbearable. You're reckless. And you're cold. At least I think before I speak." "Oh, please. You think so much you forget to feel anything." The words landed harder than Andrea expected. Madison's face didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. She turned back to the lemons. "You think feeling everything makes you better than me?" "No," Andrea said quietly. "But pretending you don't feel anything at all doesn't make you better either." Silence stretched between them. Heavy, tense. Andrea poured water into her glass, pretending. Her hands weren't shaking. "You know," Madison said after a beat, "I used to think I had you all figured out." Andrea glanced at her. "And now I think I only saw what I wanted to see. Claire told me not to judge you, but it was easier, safer. You were the opposite of everything I controlled in my own life." Translation: You hated me on sight. I thought you were selfish and careless and loud. Andrea smirked. "And now," Madison's knife paused, "now I think you're unpredictable, and that scares me." Andrea's breath caught. She opened her mouth to respond, but Claire burst into the room. "There you two are. Can you help with the seating chart? My mom's about to commit murder if Aunt Lydia doesn't stop suggesting things." Madison wiped her hands, professional mask sliding instantly into place. Of course, Andrea followed, dazed. That night, the seating chart devolved into chaos. Claire's stress hit new heights, and Andrea and Madison were left alone again after everyone else went to bed. The room was dim, quiet, filled with the soft hum of the fan and the occasional creak of floorboards. Madison stood by the dresser, brushing her hair with mechanical focus. Andrea lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "I meant what I said earlier," she muttered. Madison didn't stop brushing. Which part? The unbearable or the cold? The pretending Madison set the brush down. "You think I don't feel things, Andrea? I feel too much. I just don't let it ruin everything around me." "And you think I do?" Andrea sat up. "Let it ruin things. You explode constantly. You take up space and demand attention and act like the world owes you something. Because I'm not afraid to be seen. Because you think being messy is charming. No, because I've had to be messy to survive. You think your neat little boxes protect you. Maybe they just trap you." Madison's breath caught. Andrea stood suddenly too close. The air charged between them. "You hate me because I make you uncomfortable, because I don't fit into your idea of what a person should be." "I don't hate you," Madison said too fast. Andrea's heartbeat stuttered. "You don't?" I want to." The silence that followed was electric. Andrea took a slow step closer. "You've wanted to hate me for 5 years. You've worked hard at it." "I have." Madison's voice was barely a whisper. Andrea's gaze dropped to her mouth. "Then why does it feel like you're holding back every time you look?" "At me?" Madison's eyes darkened. "I'm not." Andrea's hand lifted almost without permission, fingers brushing Madison's wrist. "We keep pretending like none of this means anything. Like we didn't wake up married. Like we didn't kiss in Vegas. You remember the kiss?" Andrea froze. Wait, you remember?" "Flashes," Madison whispered. "Mostly the way you looked at me right before, like you couldn't believe I was real." Andrea's heart was in her throat. "I didn't think you remembered." "I tried to forget." "Why?" "Because if I let myself remember, I might want it again." That was all it took. The heat, the pull, the gravity that had been dragging them together all week snapped tight. Andrea stepped in, closing the distance between them, and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was 5 years of friction, sharp words, an unspoken want crashing into a single breathless moment. Madison's hands gripped her waist like she'd been waiting for permission. Andrea kissed her like she was falling off a cliff and had finally stopped fighting it. When they pulled apart, both breathless, hearts racing, Andrea searched her eyes. "This doesn't change anything," she said, but her voice shook. Madison stared at her. "Doesn't it?" Neither of them moved, but everything had. Andrea had made out with people she liked, people she regretted, and once disastrously, someone she didn't even remember. But she had never kissed someone the way she kissed Madison Pierce. And now that she had twice technically, she couldn't. Unfin darkened in that last second before their lips met, or how her hands had gripped Andrea's waist like she was anchoring herself to reality. And worst of all, she couldn't stop hearing Madison's voice. "If I let myself remember, I might want it again." She'd wanted it again and again. Andrea could still taste it on her lips, but they hadn't spoken about it. Not once. The next morning, Madison had acted as if nothing had happened. Cool, composed, distant. She didn't even flinch when Claire mentioned how well they were getting along lately. Andrea, on the other hand, was unraveling. She couldn't think straight. Couldn't sleep, could barely breathe when Madison walked into a room. Everything about her was a provocation now. How close she stood when they cooked together. How her fingers brushed Andrea's when they passed notes during wedding prep. How her voice dropped when they were alone. But when Andrea looked at her, really looked at her, there was something else. A flicker of something deeper. Conflicted, terrified. And maybe that was the most dangerous part of all. "You think quiet," Sam said, sitting beside her at the pool again. Andrea sipped her smoothie without answering. "Don't tell me the enemy wife situation is going well." Andrea sighed. It's not. It's going dangerously confusing. Sam raised an eyebrow. Define confusing. Andrea didn't answer. Define it or I'm going to assume you're pregnant. Jesus, Sam. So something did happen. Nothing happened, Andrea muttered. That's the problem. Sam narrowed her eyes. You're acting. Weird. Like, flustered. Weird, which is weird for you. I'm not flustered. You're flushed. It's hot. It's cloudy. Shut up. Sam leaned in. Look, I don't know what's going on between you and Madison, but if there's something you need to tell me before I make a wildly inappropriate toast at the rehearsal dinner, now's the time. Andrea blinked. You're doing a toast? Oh, yeah. It's mostly about your disastrous love life and Claire's patience. That tracks. Sam smiled. So, anything I should not joke about? Andrea hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the glass. Just don't mention marriage or Vegas or Elvis or vows. Sam stared at her. That's very specific. I'm a very specific person. You're hiding something and you're nosy. It's my love language. Andrea stood. I have to go make sure Madison doesn't alphabetize the champagne bottles. Oh my God. Something happened. Goodbye, Sam. Inside, the house buzzed with wedding prep. Claire was in full bridal mode, floating from room to room with swatches and florists, and that terrifying look brides get when they're one detail away from a breakdown. Madison, of course, was a beacon of calm. She was standing at the kitchen island reading over the seating chart with surgical focus. Andrea hovered in the doorway, watching her. It was becoming a habit. The sharp lines of her posture, the way she tapped the pen against her lip while thinking how infuriatingly put together she always looked, even in a t-shirt and jeans. And then Madison glanced up and their eyes locked. Just for a second, long enough to make Andrea's pulse jump. You're staring, Madison said quietly. Andrea stepped into the room. You look like you're about to rewrite the guest list again. Someone has to make sure the seating arrangement doesn't ignite a family feud. What would we do without your obsessive need for control? Madison smiled tightly. Probably end up drunk in a Vegas chapel? Andrea rolled her eyes. Touché, Madison set the pen down. We need to talk. Finally, Andrea muttered. Madison's gaze didn't waver. What happened between us? It can't happen again. Andrea felt the words like a punch, right? This week is about Claire. We can't afford distractions. Sure, it was a mistake. Andrea crossed her arms. Then why do you keep looking at me like it's not? Madison exhaled. Because it's not that simple. It could be, Andrea said. But you'd rather pretend nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Andrea stepped closer. Then tell me you didn't feel anything. Madison hesitated. You think this is easy for me? No. I think you're terrified. Of what? Of wanting me. Madison flinched. Andrea moved closer. Her voice softer. Now, you've spent 5 years trying to hate me. And I made it easy. I gave you chaos and bad timing and a million reasons to keep me at arm's length. But now you've seen something else. Something you can't unsee. Madison stared at her frozen. I kissed you, Andrea whispered. And you kissed me back. You didn't have to. I know. Madison's voice broke slightly. Andrea's chest arced. So stop pretending it didn't matter. But Madison stepped back. We can't do this. Not here. Not now. And with that, she was gone. Andrea stood in the kitchen, the silence around her deafening. That night, the house was full again. Games, drinks, laughter. Andrea floated through it all like a ghost. Madison avoided her. Or maybe she avoided Madison. Either way, every accidental glance was a knife. And then it happened late. Most guests had gone to bed. Andrea stepped out onto the porch, needing air. And there she was, Madison, sitting on the swing bench, wine glass in hand, gaze unfocused. Andrea hesitated, then joined her. The silence between them was different this time. Heavier, more honest. I can't sleep, Andrea said. Me neither, Madison admitted. I keep thinking about us. Same. It's like Madison trailed off. Like what? Andrea asked. Like you're the worst decision I ever made, but the one I can't stop thinking about. Andrea swallowed. Maybe it wasn't a decision. Maybe it was inevitable. They looked at each other, close, too close. I'm not easy, Andrea said quietly. I'm loud and impulsive and I ruin things. Madison's eyes softened. And I'm cold and demanding and impossible to please. And yet, Andrea leaned in slowly. Tell me to stop. Madison didn't. Their mouths met in a kiss that wasn't angry this time. It was slow, heavy, confessing things neither had the courage to say aloud. Madison cuped Andrea's jaw like she was memorizing the shape of her. Andrea kissed her like she finally understood what all the noise had been hiding. When they pulled apart, breathless and blinking, Madison whispered, "This doesn't mean we're okay." Andrea smiled. "God, I hope not. I like you better when you're impossible." Madison didn't smile, but she didn't move away either. And in that moment, for once, the chaos was quiet. Andrea had always thought the hardest part of pretending not to care was lying to other people. But it turned out the hardest part was lying. To herself. Especially now when her skin still tingled from Madison's touch. When her lips still remembered the weight of that last kiss, so slow, so full of something neither of them wanted to name. The porch had been quiet that night. Too quiet. And when Madison pulled back, she hadn't looked away. She just lingered. Like she didn't know how to stop. And maybe Andrea didn't want her to. But that was the problem. Wanting. It was dangerous, slippery. Wanting led to feeling, and feeling led to being hurt. And Andrea didn't do hurt anymore. Not since the last time someone looked at her like she mattered and left her anyway. Madison had gone to bed after the kiss, mumbling something about needing. Rest for the brunch Claire had planned in the morning. But Andrea hadn't slept. She'd stared at the ceiling for hours, heart pounding, thoughts spinning in circles. Now the morning sun was too bright, too loud through the open windows of the kitchen, and everyone was already buzzing. Claire was yelling about flower arrangements. Two bridesmaids were arguing over outfits, and the smell of burnt toast clung to the air. Madison stood near the stove, flipping pancakes with robotic focus. She hadn't looked at Andrea once, not even. When she walked in, Andrea grabbed a mug and poured herself coffee, pretending her heart wasn't thudding like a drum. "Didn't know you cooked," she said casually. Madison shrugged, eyes still on the pan. "I don't," but Claire was spiraling and someone needed to take over breakfast duty. "So you're still the savior of the house. Someone has to be the adult." Andrea sipped her coffee. "You say that like I'm not capable of maturity." Madison finally glanced at her, the corners of her mouth twitching. "You literally poured vodka into your mimosa yesterday?" It was brunch. It was 10 a.m. Andrea smirked. "You kissed me last night." Madison froze. Her shoulders stiffened, the spatula pausing mid-flip. "You kissed me first. Semantics. It doesn't matter." "Doesn't it?" "No." Madison turned the stove off, her tone sharp. "Because it was a mistake again." Andrea leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Then why does it keep happening?" Madison's eyes flicked to the door, checking if anyone was listening. "Because we're stuck in this house, forced into close proximity, and this whatever tests us, it's a pressure cooker. So now I'm just a symptom of stress. You're a problem I'm trying to solve." That stung more than it should have. Andrea tried to hide it behind a laugh. "You must be fun at parties. I don't do feelings, Andrea. I do structure control. And this thing with you, it's neither." Andrea stared at her. "Then why haven't you stopped?" Madison didn't answer. Claire burst into the kitchen, saving them both. "You two get ready. We're leaving in 20 minutes for brunch, and we're something cute pictures. Duh." She vanished just as fast, leaving tension hanging in her wake. Andrea and Madison didn't speak as they got ready. They dressed in silence, navigating the small blue room like two planets in opposing orbits, never touching, but constantly aware of how close they were. Andrea changed into a sundress, soft blue cotton that clung in the right places. She caught Madison watching her in the mirror just for a second before she looked away, cowered, at brunch. The group filled a long table on a sunny patio downtown. Laughter echoed around them. Shamham flowed. Madison sat across from Andrea, too far to touch, but close enough to feel. Andrea tried to focus on the conversations, but her eyes kept drifting back. Madison was too polished, too careful. She was pretending again like nothing had changed, like she didn't feel the heat that pulsed between them every time their gazes met, but someone else noticed. So Lucy said suddenly, tilting her head, "You two seem different." Andrea blinked. "Different? How?" "I don't know," Lucy said slowly. "Less murder." "Why? More soft tension." "Like in those movies where the enemies are clearly in love but won't admit it." Madison choked on her drink. Andrea kicked her under the table. "We've just been forced to cooperate more," she said, recovering. "My sister's wedding has turned into a hostage situation." "Still," Lucy mused, "it's kind of hot." "You guys have chemistry like combustible levels." "I think you're projecting," Andrea said. "I think I'm observant," Lucy shot back. Andrea laughed it off, but her stomach was tight the rest of the meal. The ride back to the house was quiet. Everyone scattered once they arrived. Naps, showers, phone. Calls. Andrea sat in the living room, scrolling her phone, trying not to think. Madison appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk." Andrea looked up now. No. She followed her into the bedroom. Madison closed the door, leaning against it like she was holding it shut with her entire body. "This isn't sustainable." Andrea raised an eyebrow. The eye contact, the tension, or the denial, all of it. "So, what are we doing, Madison?" "Seriously, because I can't keep pretending you don't affect me when every time you walk into a room. I feel like I'm losing gravity." Madison's voice dropped. "You're not the only one feeling it." Andrea's heart jumped. "Then say something real." "I don't know how." "Try." Madison crossed the room slowly. "I'm scared." Andrea blinked. "Of me? Of this? Of what it means? Of what it could mean? I've built my whole life around uncertainty, and you're the one variable I can't solve." Andrea's throat tightened. "I don't want to hurt you." "You will, and you'll hurt me. So why are we still doing this?" Andrea stepped forward. "Because when you look at me like that, I don't care about the risk." For a moment, the air between them shimmered with something sharp and fragile. Madison looked at her, really looked, and Andrea swore the world tilted, but then Madison stepped back. "Not here, not yet." Andrea nodded. "Okay." Madison turned to leave, then paused. "But I can't promise I won't kiss you again." Andrea smiled, small and dangerous. "I'm counting on it." Andrea had never been good at pretending. She could fake a smile. Sure, laugh at the right times, make a snarky comment that distracted everyone just long enough. But deep down, she was too much of a mess to be subtle. And Madison was a masterclass in restraint, which made everything that was happening between them feel like a tightrope walk. Andrea barefoot, wind howling, Madison pretending there was no drop beneath them. But the fall was coming. She could feel it. Every time Madison looked at her like she might say something real. Every time her hands lingered a second too long. Every time they locked eyes in a room full of people and both forgot how to breathe, Claire had no idea. Somehow she was too busy juggling last-minute details, seating charts, weather forecasts, family drama. The entire house was buzzing with wedding energy. But underneath it, beneath the laughter and polite chaos, something was cracking. And it was only a matter of time before someone saw it. "I'm serious," Claire said that afternoon, placing a tray of champagne flutes on the kitchen island. "No drama this week. Not even a hint of it. My stress level is already at maximum, and I swear to God, if one more thing goes wrong, I'll marry myself. Andrea forced a laugh. No drama. Got it. Madison stood beside her, calm as ever, sipping water like she hadn't almost kissed Andrea again the night before. Andrea hated how easily she wore the mask. Hated it because every time Madison was cold, Andrea burned hotter, and she didn't know how much more she could take. That night after dinner, the house began to empty out. Bridesmaids going to bed, some lingering in the hot tub outside. Andrea stayed in the kitchen cleaning up with Madison. The others had long since given up trying to assign chores. They worked well together, too well. It was dangerous. You didn't say much tonight, Andrea said quietly, stacking plates. Madison rinsed one without looking at her. Didn't have much to say. You're lying. You're imagining. Andrea stepped closer. I know the difference by now. Madison dried her hands and turned slowly. Andrea, I can't keep doing this. Doing what? Circling you like gravity. Wanting things I shouldn't want. Being terrified of what happens when someone finally sees it. Andrea's throat tightened. So stop pretending you don't want this? Madison looked at her, and that was it. The air shifted. Andrea stepped forward, heart pounding, their eyes locked, neither daring to blink. Madison's voice dropped. Someone could walk in. Then maybe they should, Andrea whispered. Maybe it would be easier than pretending. You don't mean that, don't I? Madison's breath caught. You're dangerous. So are you? And then they were kissing harder this time. Desperate. The dam broke and all the tension, the denial, the fear. It all spilled out in hands clutching at clothes, mouths devouring silence. Andrea pressed Madison against the counter, fingers tangling in her hair, and Madison moaned softly, fingers gripping Andrea's hips like she didn't know how to let go. It wasn't careful. It wasn't quiet. It was too much, and not enough. And then, oh my God, they broke apart instantly. Lucy stood in the doorway, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. The wine glass in her hand trembled slightly. Andrea froze. Madison looked like she'd just been caught committing a federal crime. No one spoke for a full 5 seconds. Then Lucy narrowed her eyes. Okay, so that was not the energy I expected. Lucy. Andrea started. Are you? She gestured between them. A thing. Madison inhaled sharply. It's not what it looks like, really, because it looked like you were making out with your best friend's little sister in the kitchen, after 2 months of pretending to hate each other. Andrea stepped forward. Please don't say anything. Lucy looked. Between them again, and then smirked. I knew it. The tension was palpable. I told Claire something was going on and she laughed at me. Claire doesn't know, Madison said quickly. She can't know because of the drama, Lucy asked, cocking her head. Because if she trailed off, there's more, isn't there? Andrea swallowed. Lucy, you're hiding something. Her eyes widened. Oh my God! Did you two hook up in Vegas? Is that why you've been acting weird? Neither of them answered, and that was all the confirmation she needed. Lucy gasped. Oh my God. Lucy, please. Andrea grabbed her wrist. It was a mistake. A drunken accident. But we're trying to handle it quietly without blowing up the wedding. Madison stepped aside her, voice tight. We're trying not to hurt Claire. Lucy stared at them. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, fine. Your secret's safe with me. But you two are walking disasters? We know. I mean, spectacular disasters. I thought this wedding was going to be boring. She walked away muttering, married in Vegas. Unbelievable. Under her breath. When she was gone, the kitchen fell back into silence. Andrea exhaled slowly. That was close. Madison ran a hand through her hair. Too close. Do you think she'd tell? No, but we can't risk another moment like that. Andrea turned toward her. You keep saying we can't, but you never say you don't want to. Madison didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. This is real, Andrea said quietly. even if we don't want it to be. And that's the problem, Madison whispered. I don't know what to do with real. Start by not running? Madison hesitated. And if I fall, then I'll fall with you. She left before Madison could respond because if she stayed, she might kiss her again. And this time they might not be so lucky. The house was quiet in a way that felt fake. Like everyone had agreed without saying it to keep things light, controlled, safe. After Lucy's accidental discovery, Andrea and Madison had become ghosts around each other, hovering in the same rooms, orbiting the same conversations, but never getting too close, never speaking unless absolutely necessary, and never touching. Not even by accident. It was torture. Andrea had gone out of her way to avoid the kitchen, the patio, the shared hallway between their rooms. She found new places to sit during breakfast, new excuses to be busy. Whenever Madison entered the room, Madison, true to form, mirrored her exactly. It was like a silent agreement. Whatever this was, it had to be buried deep. What's going on? With you too? Sam asked, pulling Andrea aside on the third morning of the freeze-out. Andrea blinked, trying not to show the internal earthquake. Who? You and the human iceberg? Sam muttered. You went from will they kill each other to will they underscore in the pantry, and now it's like total lockdown. Did you finally snap and murder her? Is her body in the closet? Andrea smirked. Wouldn't you like to know? So something happened. Sam, I'm just saying if you're sleeping with your sister's best friend during wedding week, I deserve at least a warning. Andrea rolled her eyes. We're not sleeping together anymore. She didn't say, but you want to. Andrea didn't respond. That was answer enough. Be careful, Sam said, surprisingly serious. Claire's watching everything, she stressed. If she thinks there's something going on, she won't. Andrea cut in because there's nothing to see. But she hated how bitter that tasted in her mouth. The bridal planner appeared mid-morning with a clipboard and a tight smile. Photo prep. Let's go. Pairs of bridesmaids for the candid shoot in the garden. Everyone grab someone and meet outside in 10. Andrea groaned. Shoot me. Sam grinned. You'll live. Go partner up with Lucy. She owes you for the whole I caught you sucking face thing. Andrea spun around looking for Madison, hoping maybe she'd already paired with someone else, but of course not. Madison stood stiff near the back of the room, eyes locked on the planner like she hadn't noticed Andrea at all. Claire pointed. You two, Andrea and Madison, you're together. Come on. Andrea opened her mouth to protest, but it was too late. Outside, the sun was soft behind hazy clouds, casting everything in a golden haze. The photographer directed everyone into groups, playing music and shouting out poses like they were all in some perfect magazine spread. You too, she called to Andrea and Madison. Hands, please, closer. Act like you actually know each other. Andrea stepped forward awkward. Madison was rigid beside her. You can relax, Andrea muttered. It's a photo, not a courtroom. You're the one tensing. I'm not tense. You're vibrating. I hate this. Then pretend it's not happening. Pretending is your thing. Madison's lips twitched. The photographer waved again. Wrap your arms around her. Waist. Closer. Like you like each other. You're bridesmaids, not rival CEOs. Andrea hesitated. Madison blinked at her. Then, after a breath, Madison reached out and gently placed her hands at Andrea's waist. The touch was soft. Careful, Andrea felt her heart thud violently. She placed her arms around Madison's neck, just barely trying to ignore the tremor in. Her fingertips, their bodies were close now, closer than they'd allowed in days, and still no one else knew. No one else could feel how tightly Andrea was holding back. The photographer snapped a few shots, then turned to help someone else. Andrea didn't move. Neither did Madison. We should, Madison started, but her voice caught. Yeah, Andrea said, but they didn't. Their eyes met and everything they hadn't. Said everything they were too afraid to feel hung in the space between them like a secret only they could hear. Andrea felt it then. Not just the tension, not just the attraction, something else. Something deeper and more dangerous. Vulnerability. Madison looked at her like she wanted to say something honest. Like the words were on the tip of her tongue, trembling to be spoken, but all she said was, "You look nice today." Andrea's chest tightened. "That's the first compliment you've ever given me." "It's not. It feels like it." Madison's mouth twitched. "You don't make it easy. You don't try. I'm trying now." Andrea swallowed. "Are you?" Madison's fingers, still at her waist, curled just slightly. It wasn't enough, but it was something. They stood there, quiet, pretending they were just holding a pose. But they weren't. They were holding something fragile. Something neither of them knew how to name. "I don't know what this is," Madison said finally. "Me neither. But it scares me. Same." Madison stepped back just a little, but it felt like a full retreat. "We should go." Andrea nodded even though she wanted to scream. Later that night, they sat on opposite sides of the living room as the group played charades. Madison laughed at something Lucy said. Andrea faked a smile and sipped her wine, and every now and then their eyes met, soft, unsure, burning. After everyone had gone to bed, Andrea returned to the blue room and found Madison already inside brushing her hair. Back to the door. Andrea didn't speak, just walked to the bed, slid under the covers, and faced the wall. A long silence stretched between them. "I didn't mean to compliment you," Madison said suddenly. Andrea turned. "You didn't. I meant to say you looked distracting and that I hated it." Andrea smiled into the dark. "Thank you." Madison slipped into bed. Beside her, staying on her side, careful not to touch. But their backs almost brushed. Their breathing said. And somewhere in that silence, something unspoken wrapped itself between them like a thread they both refused to cut. The rain came without warning. 1 minute the sky was a soft desert gray, stretched thin over the horizon like a silk sheet. The next it opened up, quiet and steady, not violent, but persistent. It soaked the patio furniture, stirred the windows, blurred the view of the distant mountains. Inside the house, laughter from a board game night hummed in the background, but Andrea didn't hear it. She sat by the living room window, legs curled under her, watching the drops trail down the glass in long winding paths. She didn't know how long she'd been sitting there. Time had become elastic lately, stretching around glances, snapping back, with tension whenever Madison was near, which was often and never enough. "You okay?" The voice came from behind her, low and careful. She didn't have to turn to know it was Madison. "I don't know," Andrea said softly. Madison stepped closer, but didn't sit. She hovered, uncertain. "Want company?" Andrea nodded. "Just once?" Madison sat beside her, legs folding the same way. Close but not touching. Their reflections shimmered faintly in the window. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt different tonight. Less like a barrier, more like a pause, holding space for something that had been waiting far too long. "Lucy asked me again today," Madison said eventually. "Asked what if there was something between us." Andrea smiled faintly. "What did you say?" "But it wasn't anyone's business." Andrea turned toward her. "Do you think that's still true?" Madison didn't answer right away. She was watching the rain like it held answers. It used to feel safer, not talking about it, not looking at it too closely. But now it just feels like lying. Andrea's heart thudded. "So stop lying." Madison's lips twitched into something almost. "Smile, you first." Andrea hesitated. She didn't want to say too much, but she was tired. Tired of pretending the most intense thing she'd ever felt wasn't happening right in front of her. "I think about you all the time," she said. "Even when I don't want to, even when I know it would be easier to walk away. I still look for you in every room." Madison's breath caught. Andrea continued, "I hated you for so long. Not because you were awful. Well, okay. Sometimes you were, but mostly because you saw parts of me I didn't want to see. You made me feel like I wasn't enough and I wanted to hate you for it. But now I think her voice softened. Now, I think maybe I hated how much I wanted you to see me. Madison turned to her, eyes wide, unguarded. She looked nothing like the perfect woman Andrea had spent years resenting. She looked like someone trying not to fall. I'm scared of how much you affect me, Madison whispered. I'm not used to feeling out of control, but with you, it's like she paused, searching for the right words, like I'm learning a new language, and I'm still bad at it, but I want to keep learning. Andrea's throat tightened, then stopped running. I'm trying. Try with me? Madison nodded slowly. I want to. The room was dark now, the only light coming from the muted string lights outside, and the occasional flicker from a lightning flash on the horizon. Andrea shifted closer. Their knees touched. Neither of them moved away. I don't want this to be just physical, Andrea said. I know it started that way. Chaos and tequila and terrible decisions. But what I feel when you look at me now, it's not. About that, Madison's voice was quiet, me neither. Then, what is it? Andrea asked. I don't know, Madison admitted. But I know it's more than I expected, and more than I felt in a long time. A silence fell again, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they'd wanted to say for days, maybe years. Madison looked down at Andrea's hand, resting on her knee. She reached out and took it slowly. Their fingers fit awkwardly at first, then perfectly. Do you want to stay with me tonight? Andrea asked just to be close. No pressure. Madison nodded, eyes never leaving hers. Yes, back in the blue room, they changed in silence. Madison wore a long t-shirt. Andrea pulled on a hoodie and soft shorts. There was no rush, no nervous laughter, just quiet understanding. When they slid under the covers, the distance between them disappeared. Madison reached for Andrea beneath the blanket, and Andrea curled into her like it was the most natural thing in the world. No kisses, no rush, just warmth, just safety. Andrea rested her head against Madison's shoulder. This feels like something, she whispered. It does, Madison agreed. But we don't have to name it yet. Let's just be in it. Andrea closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt peace. Not certainty, never that, but something softer, something like home. And when Madison's thumb traced gentle circles on her back, Andrea smiled, because this time she didn't feel like running. She felt like staying. Mornings were always the worst for pretending. There was something about soft light, sleepy voices, and the quiet clink of coffee cups that made everything feel too honest, too exposed. Andrea had always hated mornings for that reason. But now they were worse because waking up next to Madison meant her walls didn't go up fast enough. It meant warmth under the covers, slow breathing, fingers brushing hers as they shifted half asleep. It meant Andrea letting herself believe for just a moment that this was real, that they were allowed to have this, that they weren't hiding. But reality always came rushing back the second the bedroom door opened. They dressed in silence, but it wasn't awkward anymore. It was careful, deliberate, like every word and movement carried weight. Try not to look at me like you did last night, Madison whispered while pulling her hair into a loose braid. Andrea arched an eyebrow. How did I look at you? Like I mattered. Andrea smiled faintly. You do. I know. They didn't kiss. Not even a touch, but Andrea saw the way Madison's eyes softened before she turned away. Downstairs, the house was already alive. Claire had organized a family bonding day full of last-minute pre-wedding activities, and no one had escaped. Photo shoot prep, rehearsal review, and then dinner with a whole extended family. She said while pouring orange juice like she was listing spa treatments instead of a gauntlet. We're going to be exhausted, but fabulous. Fabulous is subjective. Andrea muttered, sipping her coffee. What's that? Claire asked. Nothing. Claire was too happy to catch the sarcasm, but Madison caught it. She always did. Her eyes flicked to Andreas over the rim of her mug. That tiny exchange, so quick, so subtle, set the tone for the rest of the day. Because the more they tried to act normal, the more obvious it became that something had changed. During the photo shoot, Andrea and Madison didn't touch, but they stood close, too close. When Madison laughed at something Andrea said, Claire's eyes lingered a beat longer than usual. When Andrea offered to fix the stray hair behind Madison's, ear pure reflex, soft and slow, Claire raised a brow. Nothing dramatic, just noticing. At the rehearsal, things got worse. Madison took over a missing part of the schedule, explaining it to the bridesmaids with her usual calm authority. Andrea watched her from across the room, chin in hand, face completely unguarded. Claire walked up beside her. "What's going on with you two?" Andrea jumped slightly. "Nothing. You're watching her like she invented gravity." Andrea scoffed. "She's organizing chairs." "It's not that deep." "You've hated Madison for 5 years," Claire said, voice low. "And now suddenly you're looking at her like—" She hung the moon. Andrea tried to keep it casual. "People change, do they?" Claire tilted her head because it looks more like something happened. Andrea forced a smile. "You're stressed. You're seeing things." Claire didn't push, but she didn't look convinced either. That evening during family dinner, the house was full of people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone talking over one another in a blur of wine and pasta and nervous wedding energy. Madison sat beside Claire at the head of the table like always. Andrea sat across the room, stuck between two relatives arguing about playlist choices. But even from there, she could feel Madison's presence like a current. Their eyes met once. Only once, but it was enough. After dinner, while people cleaned up and wandered off in small clusters, Claire cornered Madison in the hallway. Andrea saw it from the living room and froze. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she didn't. "Have to." Claire's posture was tight. Her arms were crossed. Madison stood straight but not defensive, just tense. When Claire walked away, Madison's shoulders dropped. Later that night, back in the blue room, Andrea shut the door quietly and leaned against it. Madison was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap. "She knows," Andrea said. Madison nodded. "She asked me point blank if something was going on between us." "What did you say? That I didn't want to ruin her wedding week?" Andrea sat beside her. "But you didn't deny it?" "No." They were silent for a long time. Then Madison spoke, voice quiet. "I didn't know it would feel like this." "Like what?" "Like being near you makes everything else harder to fake." Andrea's heart thudded. "We can stop. Can we?" Andrea didn't answer. She didn't want to. Madison looked at her then, eyes full of something. She wasn't hiding anymore. "This morning," she said softly, "when he reached for my hand under the blanket, I wasn't asleep." Andrea's breath caught. "I know, I wanted to hold you." "I know, I still do." Andre reached for her hand now. No hesitation, no secrets. Madison's fingers curled around hers like they belonged there. "Whatever happens," Andrea whispered. "We don't have to lie in here." "No," Madison agreed. "In here it's just us." They lay down like that, fully clothed side by side. Andrea rested her head on Madison's shoulder. Their hands stayed linked between them. No kisses, no whispers, just warmth, just truth. And as the soft hum of laughter and clinking dishes echoed faintly through the walls, Andrea knew the world. Outside was starting to catch on. But in here for now, they still had each other. Andrea wasn't ready for the way her sister looked at her that morning. It was early. The sun barely filtered through the kitchen windows, casting soft gold across the countertops. Most of the house was still quiet, only a few people milling around in half leap. Andrea stood by the coffee maker, waiting for the slow drip when Claire walked in. No makeup, hair messy, hoodie pulled tight, and eyes that didn't miss anything. "Can we talk?" she said, voice too calm. Andrea tensed. "Sure." Claire gestured toward the patio. Andrea followed, coffee burning in her hands. Outside, the morning air was cool, clean, and full of tension. They sat across from each other on the cushioned chairs, Claire didn't waste time. What's going on with you and Madison? Andrea blanked. Heart jumping. Nothing. Don't lie to me. Andrea exhaled slowly. Why do you think something's going on? Because I know you, Claire said. And I know her. And whatever's happening between you two, it's not just hate anymore. It hasn't been for a while. Andrea stayed silent. Claire leaned forward. You look at her like you're terrified and in love, and you flinch every time someone says her name, like they're going to say the thing you're trying not to hear. Andrea stared at her coffee. Claire's voice softened. Did something happen in Vegas? Andrea's throat tightened. Yes. Claire closed her eyes. I knew it. It wasn't planned. What did you do, Andrea? Her voice broke slightly. We got married. Silence. Long and heavy. Claire's face didn't move for a second. She didn't seem to breathe. You what? Andrea swallowed. We were drunk. We don't remember everything. It just happened. Claire stood up, pacing the deck. You married my maid of honor during my Bachelorette weekend. We were going to annul it. Andrea stood too. We tried, but the court didn't have appointments. And then the week started, and we didn't want to ruin your wedding. So you just lied. Claire turned on her to everyone. To me, we didn't want to take the focus from you. Claire laughed once. Bitter, that's underscore. You didn't want to deal with the fallout. Maybe, Andrea said. But also it changed somewhere along the way. It changed. Claire stared at her. Are you in love with her? Andrea hesitated. I don't know. Yes, you do. Andrea felt her chest cave. I think I'm trying not to be. That never works, Claire whispered. Andrea looked at her, eyes stinging. I'm sorry. Claire didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, fix this soon. Before someone else finds out, and she went back inside. Andrea? Stayed on the porch alone with the guilt, the fear, and the terrifying ache in her chest that felt too much like love. Later that day, the wedding planner burst into the kitchen with a folder in hand and a face of pure panic. The caterer canned, she said. What? Claire snapped. They double booked, and the backup's in another city. We need a new menu by tonight. Everyone looked around in horror. Madison stepped forward. I'll help. I can call vendors. Andrea, you're with... Andrea blinked. Me? You know food? You worked in a kitchen for 3 years. That was 5 years ago. Still better than everyone else here. Claire waved her hands. Fine, just fix it. And just like that, they were shoved into crisis together. The next 6 hours were chaos. Calls, menus, tastings, rejections. Andrea and Madison sat at one end of the living room with laptops and phones and spreadsheets spread across the table. This is a nightmare, Andrea muttered, typing rapidly. Welcome to wedding planning, Madison, said without looking up. Do you think she hates us, Claire? She didn't even look at me when we left, Madison hesitated. She's hurt, but she doesn't hate you. You're sure she loves you? You're her sister, but you also marry her best friend in. Secret. So right. Small detail. Madison glanced up. We'll fix it. Andrea met her eyes. Will we? We have to. They stared at each other for a moment too long. Then Andrea looked away. Vendor number 14 has duck confit and a vegan mushroom risotto. Do we hate that? No, we love that. We love that. Andrea echoed, almost smiling. Hours later, exhausted and starving, they sat on the kitchen floor with leftover cupcakes and a bottle of wine. The crisis had been mostly handled for now. Andrea leaned against the cabinets. Madison sat beside her, legs stretched out, eyes soft with fatigue. You were good today, Andrea said. Efficient, calm, bossy as hell. Madison chuckled. You weren't bad yourself. High praise. I'm still not over the fact that you threatened a catering manager. He told me duck was too bold for a family event. I stand by it. Madison laughed again, quieter this time. Andrea watched her. The curve of her lips, the way her hair fell loose now, soft and undone. She looked different like this, less perfect, more real. Claire knows, Andrea said. Madison nodded. She asked me this morning. I didn't deny it. She's mad. She should be. But she didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Andrea took a breath. I don't want to hide anymore. Madison looked at her. Really? Looked. Are we ready for that? I don't know, Andrea admitted. But I'm tired of pretending. Madison reached for her hand. No hesitation this time. So, They sat like that for a while, tangled and quiet. The storm was coming. They could feel it. But now they were together, and that was enough. Madison had always thought she was good at damage control. It was her specialty, really. Stay calm, stay focused, keep things from falling apart. But nothing about this week had stayed in control. Not the marriage, not the tension, not the way Andrea looked at her like she was the only thing in the room. That mattered. And definitely not the guilt sitting in her chest like a stone every time she locked eyes with Claire. So when Claire pulled her aside that afternoon, Madison didn't even try to dodge it. We need to talk, Claire said, voice firm. Madison followed her down the hallway away from the crowd, setting up for the rehearsal dinner into the guest room. Door closed. Silence. Claire crossed her arms. Tell me everything. Madison didn't ask what she meant. She didn't lie. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked up at the woman who had been her best friend for a decade. It happened in Vegas, she said quietly. We were drunk. It wasn't planned. We didn't even remember it until the next morning. The marriage? Claire asked, Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Madison sighed. Because I didn't want to ruin your wedding week. We were going to fix it quietly. No one would have known. But something changed. Claire said, Didn't it? Madison looked down at her hands. Yes. How long have you felt something for her? I didn't, Madison said quickly. Not before. We didn't even get along. We were always fighting. And now, Madison exhaled. Now I think the fighting was covering something up. Or maybe it just made it easier not to see her for who she really is. Claire didn't move. So who is she to you now? Madison blinked. Someone I can't stop thinking about. Someone who makes me feel things I didn't think I was allowed to feel. Like what? Like maybe I don't need to be perfect all the time to be loved. Her voice cracked. Claire's expression softened. Madison, I'm sorry. Madison whispered. I never meant to fall for her. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Claire froze. So you love her. Madison felt the air leave her lungs. She nodded. I think I do. Claire sat beside her, eyes glassy. I should be furious with you. I know, but the worst part is I saw it coming. I just didn't want to admit it. Madison turned toward her. Are you okay? No, Claire said. But I'll be as long as you. Don't lie to me again. I won't. Claire nodded once. Then she stood. Someone else knows or will soon. What? Lucy overheard part of your conversation the other day. She hasn't said anything, but she's suspicious. If she figures it out, the whole house will. Madison's heart raced. What should we do? Tell Andrea, Claire said. Figure it out. Decide if you're going to run from this or fight for it, but do it now because you don't have time left. Then she was gone. Madison sat alone for a full minute before standing, shaky and heading toward the blue room. But when she turned the corner near the stairs, she froze. Lucy was there, half hidden behind the column, eyes wide. How much did you hear? Madison asked. Lucy smirked. Enough. Lucy, relax. I'm not telling anyone yet. Then what do you want? I want to know if this is real or just another Vegas horror story. Madison's throat tightened. It's real. Then tell her before someone else does. Lucy walked away. Madison didn't wait another second. She ran. Andrea was in their room, curled up on the bed with a notebook, music playing softly from her phone. She looked up when Madison burst in. Are you okay? Madison crossed the room in 3 long strides. We need to talk. Andrea sat up. What happened? Madison sat beside her, breath uneven. Claire knows. Lucy knows, and soon everyone will. We're out of time. Andre nodded slowly. Okay, so we have to decide. Madison met her eyes. Are we going to keep hiding, or are we going to admit what this is? Andre swallowed. And what is this? It's not pretend, Madison said. It's not just the marriage or the sex we didn't have. It's you. It's how I feel when you're around and how much it scares me that I don't want to go back to pretending I don't care. Andrea's chest oped. Say it. I love you, Madison said. I didn't. Mean to, but I do. Andrea's eyes filled. You love me? Yes, and you want to stop hiding? I want to stop lying. Andrea stood pacing. If we do this, it's going to change everything. My family, your friendship with Claire, the whole wedding. I know. And you're still sure? Madison nodded. Because I'm tired of pretending love is something I can schedule around. Andrea laughed through her tears. That was the most Madison thing you could have said. Madison smiled. I'm serious. Andrea walked back to her, took her hands. Then let's stop hiding. Are you ready? No, Andrea said. But I want to be. Madison kissed her forehead gently. We'll do it together. They stood there quiet, holding hands like it was the only thing anchoring them to the world. And maybe it was. The house was buzzing with wedding energy. Music drifted through the halls. Dresses were being steamed. Flowers arranged, champagne popped. Everyone was moving quickly, talking louder than usual, laughing nervously. It was the day before the wedding, the final rehearsal, the last dinner, the calm before the storm. But for Andrea, the storm had already started. She stood in front of the mirror in the blue room, staring at her reflection like might offer some sort of clarity. Her heart was racing, her stomach twisted. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the neckline of her dress. Behind her, Madison zipped up the back of her own gown, quiet and focused as always. But Andrea knew her well enough now to see. The crack in the calm, the tightness in her shoulders, the shallow breaths, the quiet between them wasn't distant. It was charged heavy. Do you think they'll forgive us? Andrea asked barely above a whisper. Madison met her gaze in the mirror. I don't know. Do you think they'll believe this is real? They'll have to because we're not pretending anymore. Andrea turned slowly. I'm scared. So am I, Madison said, but we can't run from it now. Downstairs, the rehearsal dinner was already in full swing. The tables had been arranged beautifully out on the back patio under a canopy of lights. Music played softly, and every guest was dressed in muted elegance. It looked like the picture-perfect evening, except Andrea felt like the world was about to split open. Madison touched her hand. You ready? Not even a little. They stepped outside. Together. As they moved through the crowd, a few people smiled. Others barely noticed, but Claire saw them. And so did Lucy. Andrea's chest tightened. Madison gently squeezed her hand once, then let go as they reached the head table. Claire was talking with an aunt. Her face composed, but when her eyes met Andrea's, her smile faltered. The tension was sharp. Andrea opened her mouth to say something, anything. But the microphone crackled. The planner tapped it, then smiled wide. If I could have your attention, it's time for a few words from the bridal party. A cheer went up around the table. The best man stepped forward with a glass of wine and launched into a hilarious, mildly inappropriate speech that had everyone laughing. The moment passed, but Andrea knew it was temporary. The bomb was still ticking. As the best man stepped down, Lucy stood. I wasn't going to speak, she said, holding her glass delicately. But I've been part of this group for a long time. I've seen friendships grow, relationships fall apart, drama flare, and die. But what I've seen this week is something else entirely. Andrea's stomach dropped. Madison went still beside her. Sometimes, Lucy continued, her voice casual, but her eyes sharp. Things happen that no one expects. Two people you thought couldn't stand each other suddenly start acting different. And then, one day, you overhear something you probably shouldn't. Andrea could feel all eyes starting to shift. Madison's jaw clenched. "You think you know what's happening," Lucy went on. "But then you realize it's deeper than drama. It's something real. And if we're lucky, maybe it'll be strong enough to survive being exposed." The silence was heavy. Andrea could feel her heartbeat in her ears. "Anyway," Lucy said brightly, lifting her glass. "Cheers to love, even the messy kind." A few scattered claps followed, some confused, some knowing, and some, like Claire's, absent. Andrea stood. She didn't remember deciding to, but her body moved on instinct. Madison looked up at her wide-eyed. "I have to say something," Andrea said softly. Madison didn't stop her. Claire watched her sister step forward with a guarded expression. Andrea cleared her throat, took the mic, and looked at the crowd. "I know. You're all here for Claire and Daniel, and I'm not going to take that away from them. But there's something I need to say, something I haven't said out loud yet." To anyone, the world went still. A few nights ago, I woke up next to someone I never thought I'd even like, much less love. It was an accident, a drunken mistake. Or at least it started that way. We didn't mean to get married. Gasps. Actual gasps. Madison stood now. "But we did," she said, stepping beside Andrea in Vegas at the Bachelorette party. "We woke up with rings on our fingers and no memory of how it happened." Claire stood too slowly, her face unreadable. "You married each other?" Andrea nodded. "We tried to hide it. We were going to null it, but then she looked at Madison. We didn't want it." Madison's voice was quiet, but steady. "We didn't expect to feel anything. But we do, and we're done pretending." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Claire stared at them. "You lied to me," she said. Andrea stepped forward. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid. But I should have trusted you." "I'm not angry you fell in love," Claire said, eyes shining. "I'm angry you thought I couldn't handle the truth." Andrea's voice broke. "I'm sorry." Claire walked over, looked between them. Then she exhaled and pulled Andrea into a hug. "Next time you get married, invite me." Laughter broke the tension. Madison blinked in shock. "You're not mad at me." "Of course. I'm mad at you," Claire said. "But I've also never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her." She looked back at the crowd. "And for the record, if these two can fall in love after 5 years of mutual hatred, there's still hope for humanity." The mood lightened, the guests relaxed, and Andrea leaned into Madison, breath shaky. We did. Still married. Very. Still. Want to be?" Madison smiled. "Yes." Andrea kissed her softly right there in front of everyone. And for the first time, there was no need to hide. The moment the confession ended, the room didn't exactly explode, but it shifted like the air had been, sucked out and replaced with something heavier. People whispered, glanced, nodded awkwardly. Some smiled, some didn't. Claire had saved them with her grace and unexpected acceptance, but Andrea knew that wasn't the end of the story. That was just the beginning of a different one. One where she and Madison were no longer a secret, no longer hiding behind looks and silences and late-night handholds in the dark. Now they were out in the open, exposed, and the world had opinions. The next morning, the day of the wedding, the energy was electric. The entire house was buzzing, dresses steamed, hair curled, voices rising and falling. But wherever Andrea and Madison went, they left a ripple behind them. Some of the bridesmaids were warm, laughing like nothing had changed. Others were cool, polite, but distant. Lucy gave them a smug look over her coffee. "Well," she said to Andrea, "I told you the chemistry was obvious." Andrea smirked. "Should I thank you for pushing us out of the closet?" "Absolutely not." Lucy sipped her drink. "I did it for the drama." Andrea rolled her eyes, but there was affection behind it now. Still, the weight of being seen was pressing harder today, especially for Madison. Andrea could feel it, could see it in how she stood straighter than usual, and how her smile was just a bit too polished, her answers too measured. Like she'd slipped back into the version of herself who always needed to look composed, no matter how she felt. They were alone in the blue room later that afternoon, helping each other get ready. Andrea watched as Madison carefully fastened her earrings, her hands just barely shaking. "You okay?" Andrea asked softly. Madison nodded without looking up. "Of course, you don't have to lie. I'm not Madison." She turned slowly and the wall cracked. "Just enough. I thought telling the truth would make it easier," she whispered, but it just made it louder. All the voices, all the looks, all the questions I'm not ready to answer. Andrea stepped closer. "We don't owe anyone answers, don't we? We only owe each other honesty. That's all I care about." Madison's eyes searched hers. "You're not scared. I'm terrified." Andrea reached for her hands. "But I'm more afraid of losing. Losing you." "I didn't think I could be this person," Madison said. "The one who falls for chaos. Who doesn't have a 5-year plan. Who wakes up married to her best friend's sister and doesn't immediately file for annulment." Andrea smiled gently. "Then don't be that person. Be the one who stayed. The one who didn't run. You make it sound simple. It's not. But love never is." Madison leaned into her touch. "I'm not good at this. Relationships, feeling things out loud. You're better than you think." Andrea touched her cheek. "I've never felt safer than when I'm with you." Madison's breath caught. "You still want this now that it's real?" "I've never wanted anything more." Madison closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, there was something raw, something vulnerable and utterly unguarded. "Then let's do it for real." "Do what? Be married?" Andrea blinked. "You mean no annulment? No pretending? No halfway?" Andrea laughed, overwhelmed. You're serious." "I am." Madison smiled softly. "And for the record, that's your fault." Andrea kept her face. "God, I love you. Even when I'm impossible. Especially then." They kissed slow and deep and grounding. Not the kind of kiss that burned everything down, but the kind that made things grow. Later that day, they stood side by side in the bridesmaids lineup, trying not to smile too much. Andrea caught Claire's eye once, and Claire gave her the smallest nod, one of approval and maybe relief, but the looks didn't stop. People whispered. An older cousin made a passive-aggressive comment under her breath. One of Madison's old friends looked at them like they'd committed a crime. Madison flinched. Andrea squeezed her hand. "You don't owe them comfort," she whispered. "You owe yourself peace." Madison nodded, but her jaw stayed tight. The ceremony passed in a blur. Claire was radiant. The vows were beautiful. There were tears and laughter and a kiss and applause. But Andrea's eyes kept drifting to Madison, to the way her eyes shone when she watched love unfold, to the way she touched Andrea's hand just once during the reception when no one else was looking. After the party, in the quiet of the now empty house, they sat together on the porch swing, exhausted, changed. "I'm proud of us," Andrea said. "For telling the truth, for surviving it." Madison rested her head on Andrea's shoulder. "I was afraid it would all fall apart." "It almost did, but it didn't." Andrea kissed the top of her head. "And now we get to figure out what forever looks like." Madison smiled into her collarbone. "Starting tomorrow, why not tonight?" "Because I need sleep and food and a real bed." Andrea laughed. "Fine, but only if you keep being married to me in the morning. I promise." And in the quiet of that night, there were no crowds, no looks, no pressure, just them, honest, exposed, still holding on. The silence in Andrea's apartment was the first thing that felt real. No bridesmaids screaming down the hall. No chaotic dress fittings or floral arrangements. No whispered conversations behind locked doors. Just the hum of the fridge, the soft creak of her old wooden floors, and Madison's suitcase sitting in the corner like a question no one wanted to answer. The wedding was over. Claire was married. Everyone had gone home. But Andrea and Madison, they were still married, still wearing their rings, still unsure of what came next. Andrea walked barefoot across the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of orange juice, glancing once at the phone she tossed onto the counter. No text, no updates. Madison had gone out early that morning for a meeting, something vague about a quick coffee with someone from New York. Andrea had pretended not to care. She didn't ask questions, but now the clock was ticking past noon and the pit in her stomach was growing. The front door clicked. She turned. Madison stepped inside, hair wind blown, coat still damp from the light drizzle outside, her face unreadable. Andrea stayed where she was. Hey. Madison toed off her boots and walked in slowly, dropping her bag by the couch. Sorry I'm late. It's fine. Madison looked around the apartment, then back at Andrea. You make coffee? No juice. I could use some. Andrea poured another glass and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed. Neither commented on it. How was the meeting? Andrea asked. Madison sipped, then Saturday unexpected. Andrea joined her. How? So? Madison stared into the glass for a moment. Then quietly they offered me a job. Andrea blinked. Here. No. Manhattan. Silence. Thick and sudden. Oh, it's a big role. Creative director for a new development firm. More freedom than I've ever had. Big salary. They want an answer in 2 days. Andrea's chest tightened. Wow, yeah. Madison looked up. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. Because of me, because of us. Andrea nodded slowly. Right. This isn't about choosing a job over you. It's about choosing the life I thought I wanted before everything changed. Andrea forced a smile. And has it changed? You know it has. Then why do I feel like I'm waiting for you to walk away? Madison reached for her hand. Because this is real. Now, not a week in a wedding house. Not a secret in a guest room. This is grocery lists and morning coffee and trying to share a bathroom. This is waking up beside someone when the thrill fades, but the love stays. And is that something you want? Andrea asked, voice shaking. Yes. Madison's eyes searched hers. But I'm scared, Andrea. I've spent years building this version of myself that looks good on paper. Clean, structured, ambitious, and then you came in and wrecked all of that. And now I don't know who I am without you. You're still you, Andrea whispered. You're just not alone anymore. Madison's breath hitched. I don't know how to stay if I'm not certain. Then stay uncertain, stay messy, stay scared, but stay with me. They sat in that vulnerability, that ache, of transition where love wasn't a grand gesture, but a terrifying invitation to stay. Do you want me to ask you not to take the job? Andrea asked softly, no. Why? Because I want to hear it for myself first. And what are you hearing? Madison's eyes filled that I don't want to wake up alone. That I don't want to start over somewhere without the one person who sees through all my underscore and still wants. To share a bed with me. Andrea leaned in, forehead resting against Madison's. Then don't go. I won't, Madison whispered. But I need time to figure out what not going looks like. I don't want to build my life around you. I want to build it with you. You already are. That night, they cooked pasta together badly. Madison burned the garlic. Andrea oversalted the sauce. They ended up on the kitchen floor with takeout containers, laughing until their stomachs hurt. At one point, Andrea looked over and just watched Madison laugh. It wasn't a polished public version. It was real. It was wild. It was messy and loud, and soft around the edges. I'm falling for you, Andrea said quietly. Madison blinked. Still more. Madison smiled. Me too. Even here. Especially here. They slept tangled in Andrea's too-small bed. The sound of rain tapping the window. Their legs twisted, hands clasped. No performance, no script, just two women trying to love each other where it actually mattered. In the small, in the ordinary, and the choices they'd have to keep making every day. When morning came, Madison checked her phone, an email from the firm. She didn't open it. Instead, she rolled over, looked at Andrea, still asleep beside her, and whispered, This is the life I want. Andre stirred slightly, mumbling something. Incoherent, then wrapped an arm tighter around Madison's waist. Madison smiled, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to be anywhere else. The smell of pancakes and burning toast filled the apartment. Andrea stood in the kitchen barefoot, wearing Madison's sweatshirt, flipping something vaguely golden on the stove. Her hair was a mess, her eyes still heavy with sleep. She was humming off key, and Madison, watching from the hallway, thought, she might actually die from how much she loved this woman. You're up early, Madison said, crossing the room and wrapping her arms around Andrea from behind. You're burning things. It's called breakfast. Show some respect. It's called a fire hazard. You married me? That's on you. Madison kissed her shoulder, then peeked at the pan. Is that supposed to be edible? It's an anniversary pancake. Of what? Of our accidental wedding. Madison froze, then blinked. Wait, that's today. Andrea turned, laughing. You forgot. I didn't forget. I just didn't realize it's already been a year. 12 months since we woke up hungover, married, and mildly horrified. Madison grinned. I wasn't horrified. You called me a walking hurricane with no respect for the sanctity of order, and I stand by it. Andrea threw a kitchen towel at her. Madison caught it, still smiling. They sat at the kitchen table with coffee and the questionably edible pancake. Sunlight spilling in through the windows. Outside, the city buzzed like it always did. But in their little apartment, time felt slower, softer. So Madison said, what do people do on accidental wedding anniversaries? Andrea sipped her coffee. Mostly they get divorced. Uninspired. I was thinking maybe we do something better. Madison raised an eyebrow. Define better. Let's get married. Again, silence. Then slowly Madison leaned forward. Andrea, I'm serious. We're already married. Yeah, but we didn't choose it. Not really. We didn't have vows or rings or guests or cake that didn't come from a vending machine. You want a real ceremony? No, Andrea said. I want our ceremony. Just us. Somewhere ridiculous. Somewhere that feels like us. Madison's eyes sparkled. Vegas again? God, no. Somewhere we can actually remember afterward. And what would we say? Andre shrugged. Whatever we want. Whatever feels real. And maybe wear something nicer than a sequin mini dress covered in tequila. That dress was iconic. It was tragic. Madison laughed, shaking her head. You're serious about this? You married me once by accident, Andre said, voice soft. Don't. You want to marry me again, this time on purpose? Madison didn't answer right away. She looked at Andrea like she was seeing her for the first time again. The messy hair, the crumpled t-shirt, the burnt pancake, and the heart she wore so unashamedly on her sleeve. Yeah, Madison said. I do. They didn't plan anything grand. No church, no big white gown, number 50 guests, just a weekend road trip. A vintage motel by the coast and rings they picked out together at a flea market 2 towns away. Andrea wore a black jumpsuit. Madison wore white linen and no makeup. The sky was pink when they stood on the cliffs, wind tangling their hair, the sound of the ocean crashing below. There was no efficient, no timeline, just them. Okay, Andre sighed, holding Madison's hands. Here's the deal. I promise to be a pain in your ass for the rest of your life. I'll probably forget where I put things, hug the covers, and flirt with you at wildly inappropriate times. But I'll also love you like it's the only thing I was made for. I'll fight for us. I'll grow with you. And I'll never stop choosing you. Even when you leave dishes in the sink and color code our bookshelf by vibe. Madison left, wiping her eyes. My turn. Hit me. Andrea Scott, I promise to love you even when you make me insane. I promise to try every day to loosen the grip I have on perfection and let a little chaos in. Because you are chaos, but you're also joy. You're the reason I remember to breathe. And even though I swore I'd never fall for someone who breaks all. My rules, you've become the only rule that matters. Andre sniffled. We're so gross deeply. They exchanged rings, kisses, laughter, and when they lay on the motel bed that night, tangled together, sand still on their ankles and salt in their hair, Andrea whispered, "This was better than Vegas." Madison pulled her closer. Everything with you is months past. The seasons changed. They found a rhythm. Fighting over grocery lists, making up in grocery aisles, leaving post-its on mirrors, building a life not perfect but completely theirs. Madison took a smaller position with the firm, one that kept her in the city. Andrea went back to working with food, starting small, but finally feeling like she was feeding people the way she wanted. One morning, Andrea found a note in her coat pocket. In Madison's handwriting, it read, "You were never the wrong choice. Just the unexpected one, and I'd do it all again, every time." Andrea folded it and tucked it into her wallet, a secret vow she could carry with her, just in case the world ever made them doubt again. But it didn't. Not really, because this time it wasn't about hiding or surviving. It was about staying. About waking up married and wanting to be on purpose for real forever.